The novel serves as a charm against darkness. The laughter in the book is never forced, for it comes from a deep source. Whatever debt Maud owed to books, such as the ever-magical Alhambra by Washington Irving, she conscientiously repaid in her own writings. The brilliant sparkle of her work, its heart-raising effervescence, was hard-earned and deliberate. "Thank God I can keep the shadows of my life out of my work," she wrote. "I would not wish to darken any other life. I want instead to be a messenger of optimism and sunshine." Isn't it splendid to think of all the things there are to find out about? It just makes me feel so glad to be alive. It's such an interesting world. It wouldn't be half so interesting if we knew all about everything, would it? There'd be no scope for imagination then, would there? But am I talking too much? People are always telling me I do. Would you rather I didn't talk? If you say so, I'll stop. I can stop when I make up my mind to it, although it's difficult.
Good afternoon. Last year I came out to Mississippi Queen by Leslie West. This year I chose a different approach to it, but with a message as well. First, quiz. The second passage. Anybody recognize the second passage? What book is it from? Anne of Green Gables. Who said that? Anne of Green Gables. We have a shirt for you. All right, now, here's the tough one. Anybody recognize that one? And there's some people who are disqualified from this. Anyone recognize it? It's from House of Dreams, written by Professor Liz Rosenberg, our professor of English. Liz recently... Is Liz here? You were disqualified. Thank you, Liz. I read all of Liz's books, and when this one came out, I immediately, well, we know what reading means, right? I listened to it on the radio as I'm driving to New York and back. But I finished this book that Liz had recently read or written, and I really didn't know who Ellen Montgomery was when I started the book. Did not know. And at the end of it, I said, oh my gosh, I now have to read Anne of Green Gables. I have to at least listen to it. And I'm about 2/3 of the way through it right now, and I've learned so much from understanding who Maud Montgomery was and why she wrote Anne of Green Gables, which is a story about her life that perhaps she really wanted it to be, but it wasn't, because she grew up in a very conservative home in Prince Edward Island. So it gave you a new perspective, and if you get the chance to read Liz's book, you'll find out that Maud Montgomery suffered from depression and died a difficult death, even though she had a very successful writing career, but a very difficult childhood. But everything in Anne of Green Gables is happy, and she's always happy, and everything's so great. So it was this contrast, it was a different perspective that she wanted to put on her life for others. What happened to me was I came home and said to my wife, Kathy, who has been telling me for years, boy, I really want to go to Prince Edward Island. I really want to go to Prince Edward Island. I kept saying, what is on Prince Edward Island? Well, it's where Anne of Green Gables is set. I said, oh, what's Anne of Green Gables? So she finally now has a partner that understands we have got to go to Prince Edward Island as soon as we can and see all the parts of that story. And so it's perspective. That's what I wanted to talk about today. It's not always exactly what we see. There's a perspective that can be brought by understanding what's behind something. And Liz has done a great job of bringing that perspective to Ellen Montgomery's work in Anne of Green Gables. And maybe at the end, I can tie this together with why that's important to the state of the university this year. Let me talk about growth. When I got here, there was a proposal, New York SUNY 2020 proposal to grow. And the plan was to grow by 20,000 students in 5 years. And the plan was really something that we had adopted before I came. The East Campus housing project had been started, was almost completed. And so when I came, I said, okay, the campus, the university is ready for this. We will do it. But we have to do it right. Because getting bigger doesn't mean you're going to get better. Bigger does not mean better. Bigger gives you more resources. And so if you invest them properly, you can get better. But it doesn't guarantee that you're going to get better. So in 2013, I went back and looked at some of the slides where I was trying to say to people, hey, getting bigger can mean getting better. And some of the things that happen when you get bigger, if you do it right, and we've done it in a way that I think has tried to emphasize better. For example, we have hired faculty at twice the rate that we've increased enrollment. So in the past 6 years, we've increased enrollment by 15%, and we've increased our full-time tenured and tenure-track faculty by 33%. Twice the rate of our student growth. We grow our staff at exactly the same rate as our student growth, 15%, because students' needs are probably proportional to their population. That then gives our faculty more time to develop courses, more time to offer different sections of courses, more sections of courses. It builds their ability to balance their time between teaching and research, lowering the student-to-faculty ratio. It also allows us to build critical mass of faculty in certain areas. And lastly, which kind of is important to me, it helps the community. It really helps the community. I tell people in 2006, I came back to New York after I had been gone since 1979. And I came back to New York State and I looked around and said, what the heck happened in the last 20-some years that I've been gone? And I realized the loss of the manufacturing jobs across upstate New York had really devastated our communities. And so I looked at it as an opportunity to use the university's growth, getting bigger and getting better, in order to make our communities even stronger. So some of the statistics, 2,700 students we've grown, we've increased faculty and staff by 450. Our economic impact is $1.5 billion. And if you look at our undergraduate enrollment, we are at 13,975, which is exactly almost where we wanted to be when I started talking about this in 2013, 14,000 undergraduates. And then I said something that I probably should have been very careful about saying, 20,000 students by 2020, but maybe I meant 20-something. But we had a more robust plan of growing our graduate programs then. And we haven't done that yet. And that's the challenge. That's the opportunity that we have to continue to focus on. And it's not our fault. It's hard to grow graduate programs. There's a lot of competition in growing graduate programs. And the economy is fairly strong. So an undergraduate degree allows you to get a good job. You don't have to go on for a master's degree. But it's going to be something that's going to be important for us if we're going to continue to get bigger and get better. And we did it at the same time by increasing our student quality. 1370 average SAT for our freshman class. U.S. News and World Report just came out, and if you look at the ranking of public universities by average SAT of the freshman class, we're 5th in the country. Above us, UCLA, UC Berkeley, University of Virginia, and Georgia Tech, then us, then everybody else you can think of. Everybody else is lower than us. So we have done this growth and at the same time increased the quality of our students. We did it with the help of the state. And I really want to thank, I think I saw Fred Akshar here, Senator Akshar and Assemblywoman Lepardo. Thank you for coming today. Really appreciate it. I can also recognize our council members, Student Representative Harry Bitker, Kate Madigan, Maureen Wilson, and Dennis McCabe. Thank you for coming today. Oh, and does that picture take your breath away a little bit? Where's Jonathan Cohen? Jonathan's back there somewhere. There's Jonathan. Sunset. Sunset, beautiful. I don't know how you capture those, Jonathan. But we want to thank the state of New York for their support of the capital projects that have allowed us to make those that growth possible. We couldn't do it if we were in the same physical campus that we had 7 years ago. And the School of Pharmacy is key to that expansion. It allows us to get into a new community, Johnson City, which desperately needs revitalization, and allows us to relieve some of the pressure on the campus by moving cars and people and students and faculty over into Johnson City rather than on this campus. And it's a beautiful building. If you haven't been through it, I'm sure that you could just go up, knock on the door, probably open half the day, and wander around and take a look at it. Some of the facilities inside of there are state-of-the-art. For example, we have a sterile compounding room in there, which is where pharmacists learn how to make sterile preparations, treatment preparations for patients in hospitals. And we are pretty sure that we are the only school of pharmacy that actually has a true sterile compounding room inside of it. We've also partnered with Innovation Associates, the largest manufacturer of robotic pill dispensers, in order to install state-of-the-art robotic dispensers. And a community pharmacy, as well as simulator patients that our pharmacy students can go in and interact with in a two-way conversation, as well as taking vitals and applying therapies. But there's more to be done in Johnson City. That one's done. We have a lot more to do, actually. Probably more to do than what we've already done. This is the Endicott Johnson Box Factory. It's right across Willow Street from the School of Pharmacy. We're looking from the east to the west. That tower in the middle and that atrium in the front doesn't actually exist right now. Those are going to be part of the new building. The designs are completed. The bid documents are going out. We anticipate this project to be about $30 million total. Money coming from the Upstate Revitalization Initiative that we won several years ago as part of the Southern Tier. It will be able to not just have all of our School of Nursing with upgraded facilities, including better and newer simulated patients. It will also have the space necessary to create new programs in physical therapy, occupational therapy, speech therapy, and audiology therapy. If you were to kind of fly over that building from here over the top of it, you would land on a grassy area right next to the School of Pharmacy, which we've left empty on purpose. And that's where, thanks to our great support last year through the budget process, we got $15.9 million to build a new research and development building that will help our faculty in pharmaceutical sciences develop new therapeutic solutions to diseases, as well as attracting companies that could co-locate there. The building is 3 stories tall. It will have a second floor that is open and available to company partners that could utilize the facility alongside of our faculty and students. It also is almost done in design. Bids will go out shortly, and the project is to be completed in 2020. Both of these buildings will be done in 2020 if we stay on track to our schedule. Along the street, along Corliss Avenue, there's a street called Jennison Avenue. We purchased through a donor contribution of $1.2 million. That was the donor contribution. We purchased the facility for much less than that, and we're spending money on renovating it, where we're going to have an elder care facility that, in partnership with UHS and Lourdes, can see real patients that can be treated by our Doctor of Nursing practice students and faculty as well. As we've been doing this, you always watch who else is going to be in your neighborhood. And so far, probably the biggest project that's completed is the Sunrise Century apartment complex, which is right south of the pharmacy school. We have over $130 million in private investments that are being made right now and pending. If a couple of URI projects are supported, another $120 million that would be pending in the area. Huge investments over a short period of time. I keep telling people, and I wasn't here before the downtown campus was built, if we improve downtown Binghamton by putting the downtown campus there, which people say we did, this will be 3 times that. 3 times as many students, 3 times as many faculty, 3 times as much investment, maybe even more than 3 times. So we will see a significant improvement and expansion into Johnson City over the next 5 to 10 years. And also, thanks to the state support, we have a brand new building for our chemistry and physics faculty. The Smart Energy building, where now chemistry and physics are co-located, working in facilities that were built for research, as opposed to Science 1 and Science 2, which really were built for undergraduate education. and the Kauffman Southern Tier Incubator that opened in June 2017 on Hawley, Carroll, and Lyle Street. A great building, a great place for our entrepreneurs and startup companies. It's 90% occupied. It has 40 firms associated with it. 20 of the firms are actual tenants inside the building. The other 20 firms are participating in programs in the incubator to help improve their chances of becoming a successful startup company. What's key to this and why we built this and why the Kauffman family has been so generous to support it is because we wanted it to be linked to the university's research and graduate programs. And several of the companies are a direct result of faculty research, but the story that I heard the other day at a forum event, a company that's in there is now the largest company in there. They've grown from 2 people who are the founders to 24 employees already. They're called Bandolier. They service the difficult administrative functions of startup companies, and they do it across the entire country from this location. So if I'm a startup company, I don't have somebody who does my taxes. I don't have an HR office. I don't have a marketing office. I don't have a web design office. They do that for startup companies. And because they're in the startup world, they know how to talk that conversation with those companies. So 10 full-time employees, 14 part-time employees. All 14 part-time employees are Binghamton University students. And neither of the co-founders have a connection to Binghamton University. But they wanted to be here because of the quality of our students they knew would help their business. And Science 4 renovations, if you walk around and you take a look at that, maybe you don't remember what it used to look like, but it was kind of crumbling concrete and brick. And we've improved it. We've actually added some spaces. Some of those open areas underneath the building have been closed in, adding more space. We have definitely improved the overall energy conservation of the building, as well as access to the building, a new elevator in there, and spruced it up. There's only so much you can do with critical maintenance, but I think we've done a great job, and if there's anybody here from the psychology department, I know that they're happy with their new home. And certainly because of what happened, well, independent of what happened last year, we knew that we can always make our campus a safer place and a place that communications can be done more quickly. And so we have spent a significant amount of effort over the summer. One of the things that we've announced is the Be Alert system is now opt-out, not opt-in, which means if you have a cell phone in our database, it is now part of the alert system. In the past, you actually had to go in and opt into it, but we've turned that around. Students also are now opt-out, and we've greatly increased the number of people that we can reach instantaneously. Part of that upgrade is also to create to purchase a Be Alerted system. This is actually a physical button next to the dispatcher in the police office that when a call comes in, it can hit a button and send out an emergency notice right away. No details, because we don't have the details, but it can say things like, an incident has occurred on campus, please stay in place. So within a minute, you'll have that information. And then 20 minutes later, 15 minutes later, when we can confirm exactly what's happened, a confirmation can come out. And then a third message that could be an all clear sign. We've also added 160 security cameras, almost all in the residence halls that didn't have security cameras, and 60 panic buttons in offices across the campus. We've also increased the cell phone reception in the basements. We put in repeaters and antennas in the basements of most of the buildings now so that you can have cell phone reception there. And because we know we can almost never meet the growing demand for mental health counselors, we added 3 additional counselors this summer, going from 10 full-time counselors to 13 full-time counselors. Let me talk a little bit about the new faculty. So many new faculty. Even though we're not growing our net faculty at the rate we were for 5 years in the beginning of SUNY 2020, we are still adding faculty because faculty retire, faculty leave for other reasons. We actually had 61 faculty searches that were scheduled to hire a faculty member this fall. Not all were successful, not all were completed, but many of them were, and I'm just highlighting a few of them here. Melissa Sutherland, who's a professor of nursing working on global health. Chandiran Valaden, who's an assistant professor of human development working on examining racism and human rights in our human development program. Fuda Ning, who's a professor in system science, industrial engineering, who works on 3D printing, and David Sterling Brown, assistant professor of English, teaching issues of race in Shakespearean literature. Great new people and many, many more. And 160 new full-time staff. Even though we have not grown our staff during that period of time, the turnover rate on our staff is very high, especially in the residence halls where an RD might come in for 1 or 2 years. And so we've hired a significant number of new full-time staff. Some of the research on the funded side, on the STEM side, our research expenditures grew over the last year by 19.2%. The year before that, they were up almost 20% as well. So we're at $47.5 million of research expenditures in the last academic year. Also, during the 17-18 year, our faculty and staff wrote $224 million in proposals. And of those proposals that were submitted, there was a high success rate. 57.6 of them have been funded and are now we call committed funds. It's almost 1 in 4. That's a great ratio in terms of proposal productivity. And our new School of Pharmacy and Pharmaceutical Sciences has hit the ground running with only about a half a dozen faculty doing research, the rest of the faculty doing clinical educational roles. But they have also received $3.3 million in research funding in their first 2 years. A couple of big projects, Kaiming won a big project with, in partnership with Johns Hopkins with a National Institute of Standards program looking at advances in biofabrication. Kaiming is the guy that talks about printing new internal organs for humans. And so the research he's working on there has a great boost from this. And $5 million will be coming to the university. It's a much larger grant that's going through Johns Hopkins. And then Louis Piper and Wei Chang Lee have a $22 million Department of Defense project with Georgia Tech to look at, again, biological systems in computing. Biological systems in computing. What an interesting idea. And that's a large grant, again, from the Department of Defense in this case, but going through another partner, and that being Georgia Tech. Our portion of it is $2 million. And then when you get those news feeds in your email box every day, and a new book comes out or a new article gets published, and it starts getting picked up on the news wires, or it's cited in the Wall Street Journal, and you click on it, you go, some of this stuff is really cool, and you really love to read it. Certainly, I think by now everybody has heard about Anne Bailey's book on the Weeping Time, about the largest slave auction in American history. It's receiving international acclaim for her work that took her a long time to gather the information necessary to put together that very accurate story. And Lena Bigdash, who's working on the connection between diet and emotional well-being, certainly an important part of our lives with young students around here not eating well and struggling emotionally sometimes. How do we coach our students to be better, healthier eaters, and at the same time improving their mental health? And then some of the kind of cool stuff that comes out of the School of Management, Scott Bentley looking at the pay impact, the CEO pay impacts on employee layoffs. I won't tell you the punchline. You might guess. Or Joyu Tsai, who's looking at compassionate leadership styles that increases worker productivity. Isn't that a nice thing? Compassion actually makes you work better. And maybe I haven't given enough accolades yet to Liz, but Liz's new book, which you can find on Amazon, is a great story that I encourage you to read. And then also the 700th birthday of Pocaccia. Anybody here from Seamers? A great book put together by all the presentations and papers that were given at the Pocaccia conference. I think it was 3 years ago. Has now come out, University of Toronto Press publication. TAEs, Transdisciplinary Areas of Excellence. We talk a lot about this, and there's always been this fear that we're going to get TAE'd. We're going to get consumed by TAEs, and there'll be nothing left of the original department structure of the universities. It couldn't be further from the truth. The TAEs are a way to enhance the department structures. And if you look at how many faculty right now are participating, voluntarily participating in TAEs, it's 180 out of our 650 full-time tenure-track faculty. So it's not a huge percentage, not even a majority of our faculty. And again, they're all voluntarily participating in those TAEs. We have hired 96 TAE faculty. Now you'd say, okay, it seems like a lot. How many faculty have we actually hired in those 6 years? More than 300 faculty. We've grown by 150, but we've actually hired more than 300 faculty, of which about a third are related to TAE areas. We ask TAE faculty to self-report some of the results of their interactions with their TAE groups, and about $17 million in external funding has been designated by our faculty involved in TAEs as being a result of some of their interactions in a TAE. And that we've given out $950,000 in seed grants to get people ready to submit proposals, and those proposals have yielded $4 million in external funding, or a 4-to-1 payback. We have a new TAE. There was a process, a long, probably 12-month process of evaluating TAE proposals, and we selected data science as our 6th and probably final for now TAE. I'm going to talk a little bit about the data science initiative that's part of our renewal and connect it to TAEs in a bit. We have a great opportunity. We have a sense of urgency at our door right now. I've talked to people about the fact that we have not had a raise for our faculty and staff for almost 5 years. We've gone at zeros, and then we went without a contract for 2 years. Finally, thank you, Sean. Thank you, UUP. I'm sure you were helpful along the way. But getting the UUP contract signed with healthy, we believe healthy, strong components, certainly around salary and benefits, is going to help us retain and attract new faculty in the future. Well, all isn't rosy, right? It's not like the state gave us the money to give the raises. It's our job now to find the money to give those raises. But that's an opportunity, because it means we have to work a little bit harder in order to generate some of this revenue. The cost to the campus, and Michael McGough's here, he is the keeper of all the numbers. The cost to the campus is $10 million right now. We need to pay $10 million to catch up for the 2 years that we did not give raises. So you'll be getting increases in this year and increases in next year's salaries in order to pay the 2 years that we did not get raises, but now the contract gives us retroactive 2% raises. And after this year, we need a $4 million per year increase in our revenues in order to sustain the current faculty and staff that we have. Not hiring anybody new, just $4 million a year in order to maintain everybody, to give them those 2% and slightly higher raises in the out years of the contract. Well, we have saved some money. You know, I got here after the downtown center flooded, but as you know, the downtown center was a disaster. And we had, luckily, a great fiscal practice of maintaining a healthy balance in our reserves. And we were able to renovate the downtown center using our own cash, a little more than $5.5 million, to get the CCPA faculty back into their building. It's kind of what you use money for, right? The rainy day, literally, the rainy day. So we have reserves. And the decision was, let's pay off the 2 years with our reserves. How many reserves do we have? I don't know if you guess, but these are called IFR balances. If you look at everybody's IFR balance across the entire university, we don't have access to them. They're departments and faculty members and different people. It's $150 million in reserves that people have held. Centrally, under control, about $50 million. So we're not spending the bank. We're not emptying the piggy bank, but we are going to use $10 million of those reserves in order to catch up the first 2 years of the contract. But then we're on our own. Then we've got to find the $4 million a year. And that means, well, how do you get more revenue? You can have more students. That doesn't always make us happy because that lowers the raises the student to faculty ratio. We can have students at different tuition rates. We can have more out-of-state students than in-state students, but we always worry about quality. We worry about the New York State mission. We can have graduate students. Graduate students pay a higher tuition rate than undergraduate students, and graduate students are good. Remember, that's where we're kind of short in enrollment. That's where we want to be. We want to be a bigger university that creates master's programs and PhD programs that get people careers after they leave Binghamton. So that's a big opportunity. And certainly international students is a big opportunity, especially at the graduate level. So we know how to do it. We know how to do it. We know how we can find $4 million a year. Right now, we get about $160 million a year in tuition from our students. To find $4 million a year in new revenue doesn't sound like a hard task to me, but we have to work hard at it. Alternatively, we could lower our costs by $4 million a year, right? That's kind of the chicken way out, though. That's not the way Maud would want Anne to approach the problem. We're going to grow our way out of it. We're going to make our way out of this. We're not going to cut our way back into this problem. And we have university initiatives. Remember last year at this State of the University, I talked about 4 university initiatives that we were going to launch. We formed some committees. They came up with great plans and ideas, business plans, financial plans for each one of them, and we're launching them. Again, we're not going to sit back and wait for Albany to send us some money in order to solve this problem. We're going to move forward on these ideas. The presidential postdoctoral fellowships. This is to bring a more diverse faculty to the campus. We've hired our first 2 this year, one in anthropology and one in pharmaceutical sciences. And we anticipate to hire 2 or 3 each year for the next several years. And there are 2-year appointments with a 3rd year optional. The data science initiative. Well, now we have a TAE around data science, so we have a process for hiring faculty through the TAE hiring process that can add expertise, especially in areas where data science isn't being used. The social sciences and humanities would certainly be 2 areas. We're going to authorize expenditures for equipment for the data science initiative, and our new CIO, Niazi Badur, and our Vice President for Research, Bhagat Samaki, will be working together to decide where and what kinds of computational equipment we need to purchase and where we would be locating that. The Health Sciences Campus was also one of our renewal projects. And for those of you who are new, we have a process here when we try to come up with new ideas. We do not sit in a small room with a few people. This had over 300 volunteers that worked for an entire semester to come up with these ideas. Then there was a voting and a ranking process that we went through. These came through a process that was very inclusive, and I think were selected for the right reasons because people would be behind them if we chose them. The Health Sciences Campus, certainly the construction of the new nursing building, the R&D building, and some other opportunities along Corliss Avenue is going to help our Health Sciences Campus. And we've also been submitting new proposals for programs, physical therapy, occupational therapy, and speech therapy. Then the 4th one was improving our health sciences core research facilities. Specifically, a big one was we do not have an fMRI, a full-body fMRI that can do scans that can look at specifically brain functions for our psychology faculty, and that is an area that we are lacking in. And what we came up with, a solution to this is actually to partner with our local health providers so that we all can win, so that the community can win, perhaps getting a new MRI that's a better MRI than our community has right now, but one that can be shared between the hospitals as well as the faculty on campus. They're all going to take a small amount of investments, but they all have business plans that recover those investments over a reasonable 4, 5, 6-year time frame. And they will make us better as we get bigger. And we're in the silent phase of a campaign. You know, these campaigns that universities run, they're 7 years long, and the first 2 years you're not supposed to talk about it, as if you'll be able to raise more money because it's a secret. I never really understood that. You got to tell people you're in a campaign. Then they'll feel a sense of urgency and they'll give you more. Well, we have set a goal of $150 million. We actually had a consultant who came in and assessed where we were. That's a lot of money for us because when I got here, we were raising about $5 million a year. That would take a long time to raise $150 million a year. But over the past several years, by adding some development staff and by increasing our involvement, engagement with our alumni, we're now raising around $13 million a year. In fact, we had a very high year in 16-17 where we raised almost $17 million. That gives us a feeling that we can reach $150 million. We've already counted $32 million towards the goal of $150 million. And we have some great prospects that could make us get there, perhaps even ahead of the 7-year time frame. And rankings. Why not end on rankings? You know, we struggle looking at these rankings because there's the big factor in U.S. News and World Report is your reputation as measured by other university presidents. Other university presidents can't even spell Binghamton. We don't have a football team on television every Saturday afternoon. So we are not a household term in university presidents around the country. But we moved up this year from 87th to 80th, in public universities from 37th to 32nd. Big moves because U.S. News and World Report finally listened to some people, lowered the emphasis on those peer reputational scores, and increased the emphasis and creating a new emphasis on social mobility. That they now actually calculate the percentage of students who are Pell eligible and their graduation rate in 6 years, and that now is a factor in your U.S. News and World Report ranking. And that was one of the reasons, one of the biggest reasons why we jumped from 87th to 80. So what did the book have to do with this State of the University address? I keep trying to think, how do I explain this? So, all right, I went to the TEDx talks last year. People here probably went to TEDx last year. The student speaker last year at TEDx talked about the glass half full or the glass half empty. And we all think the optimist says the glass is half full. He said, no. If your life is the part that's empty, think of all the opportunities you have to fill that glass. That the half-empty part is the exciting part. The challenge of finding the right things you're going to put in the empty part of your life, or the empty part of that glass, that's the exciting thing. Stuff in the glass already, you know what you've got. You've got that. And so, again, kind of back to perspective, if we think the perspective is, we have this financial problem we've got to solve. It's not a problem. It's an opportunity. It's a chance to look at that part of the glass that's half empty and to decide how we want to fill it. And again, I'm still struggling, but Liz, you and I will have a therapy session later on and try to figure out how this really did connect to Ella Montgomery. Thank you. And we don't have time today to have questions, but I'm going to hang around for a little while. I've got to be in Albany for a meeting tomorrow morning, so I'm getting in my car. But if you want to chat with me, stick around, or if you want to send me an email, hstenger@binghamton.edu. Thank you very much.